We're here to provide financial services to level up people's lives one transaction at a time. What does that mean? I think when I talk about leveling up people's lives, it's a bit of an allusion to the gaming world, right? Imagine you have a power up where you have something that you get in the game to level up your character. That's what we're alluding to. We want to give people just the right amount of financial services in a very simple, very accessible way to get them closer to where they want to be. The other key aspect of, I think, what our purpose is, because we are a place, we're a platform where people transact on a day-to-day basis. We have the power to help shape positive habits, empower people with discipline over their everyday consumption, right? I think those are the two things that are really important.
Hi, Zubin. It is an absolute pleasure having you in the show.
Hi, Monica. Great to be here.
And of course, for full disclosure for everyone, Zubin and I work together in BigPay. So this episode is one of the most exciting episodes that people have been waiting for, because BigPay is one of the biggest fintechs in Southeast Asia. And it's just exciting to be behind the scenes and also in the podcasting side. So Zubin, welcome.
Thank you. Looking forward to having a really interesting conversation with you, Monica.
Likewise. Okie dokie. So this podcast is about how we can build more purpose-driven fintechs. So what is your take?
It's a little bit ironic, but I think we can be a little bit more purpose-driven if we don't start with the tech as such, right? So it's an interesting paradox because we are a tech company, we're a software company, but to be purpose-driven and make an impact, we can't just build software for the sake of it. We can't just build technology for the sake of it. We need to really start with how can we make a positive impact on our customers' lives and then deliver that impact through software that we build, technology that we create. Nobody consumes financial services for its own sake, right? Nobody goes out and opens an account in a bank or in an e-wallet just for the sake of doing it. It doesn't make it doesn't make them feel better. It doesn't improve their lives. What they use financial services for is to go somewhere beyond where they are, to go somewhere further, to go somewhere beyond where they are. So I think it's important to realize that we need to understand how we best do that for our customers and then build the tech and build the software to be able to do it. So yeah, we can be a lot more purpose driven if we don't start with tech and don't start with building the software, but really start with how are we making our customers' lives better, right? That's how I would start.
Yeah, and I think you raise a very good point, because people in general, they are not excited to be like, yeah, I'm going to my bank.
Why would you be, right? Why would you be? But you are excited when you get your loan approved so that you can buy a new car or you buy a new house, or it allows you to do go on holiday or something like that. Right? That's what excites you. It's the catalytic effect that financial services has on your life, right? Not financial services itself.
Exactly. Okay, so moving on. Tell me a little bit about BigPay. What's the purpose of BigPay?
So quite simply, I think we're here to provide financial services to level up people's lives one transaction at a time. What does that mean? I think when I talk about leveling up people's lives, it's a bit of an allusion to the gaming world, right? Imagine you have a power up where you have something that you get in the game to level up your character. That's what we're alluding to. We want to give people just the right amount of financial services in a very simple, very accessible way to get them closer to where they want to be. For instance, maybe a loan they need to better themselves by taking a professional certification or professional short course, right? Maybe it is the ability, the discipline to help put money away to repay that loan, right? Just the right financial services, right? In a very simple way that can be understandable with various approach. The other key aspect of, I think, what our purpose is, because we are a place, we're a platform where people transact on a day-to-day basis, right? We have the power to help shape positive habits, empower people with discipline over their everyday consumption, right? I think those are the two things that are really important. I think that's the underpinning of our purpose. One transaction at a time is in the mission because we're always there, the payments platform, people's lives. So we can nudge people into better places, help them spend better when they are looking to buy something, help them put money aside, one transaction at a time, save and top up, and then round up their transactions. So I think that's where we are. That's what we hope to provide our customers.
Yes. And it is not that easy to do in reality, right? It's not that easy to change customer behavior as such. So, what is your hypothesis for yours and the management team's hypothesis? What makes you think that BigPay has everything to win?
Yeah. No, I think first of all, I think the purpose that we have is not something that I see a lot in the market, especially around Southeast Asia. I think we have a combination of, we have the right kind of hard product. We have a transacting platform. We give people a full range of tools to make the payments they need to consume and live their everyday lives. At the same time, we can then improve upon that by building a layer where we're helping nudge people in the right direction. We help people make sure that they're spending sustainable and responsible by giving them the analytics and the kind of money management tools that they need to be able to control their spending and consumption. We're also helping to nudge them in the right direction. So we have roundups and top-ups that allow people to put some money away for the future, that helps them to repay for loans, that helps them to save for remittance in the future. So I think we have the right core proposition there. And I think it's about building a layer that helps create some impact in people's lives.
Mhm. Yes, and building an impact. I think one of the things that you and I have in common is impact, right? And we do all this work that we do because it's a lot to genuinely have impact in people's lives. So I want to step back and then talk about financial well-being. What is your definition of financial well-being?
I think financial well-being is a state where people don't have to worry about finances. They don't have to worry so much about money. I think that to me is at the core of financial health. When you feel that you are in control, that you don't feel that you're going to be caught unaware, that you don't feel that you're going to be taken by surprise, where you feel that you have access and you're empowered by financial services rather than being afraid that you don't qualify for certain financial services that you need at certain times. I think that's for me what financial well-being is. Financial well-being is the absence of stress about finances and your money. I think that's what we hope to push it to deliver to people.
Yeah.
Right.
And what I like about that is that doesn't matter how much you earn. It doesn't matter where you sit in the hierarchy of power acquisition. It's like financial stress is real at every single level. It's just
Absolutely.
different stress.
Yeah. So I think that's right. And there's been a lot of, especially in the region, a lot of talk about underservice and financial literacy and everything. But I think sometimes I also don't like how a lot of this discussion is positioned, right? I don't really like the word financial literacy, right? Because it really can seem very patronizing and demeaning to say, okay, you don't have, and it makes the problem seem a bit too binary, right? That, there are people who are financially illiterate, like people who are financially literate. And those financial literate people are going to save the world. I don't think it's like that. I think, as you said, it's a little bit more nuanced and across all sorts of socioeconomic strata. There are points where people could benefit from a friendly word of support or guidance. So I hope BigPay can be that kind of entity, that kind of organization where we give support and guidance and advice, but in a way that's understandable and in a way that's not patronizing, in a way that people can say and easily understand. Right? I don't think it's really about, still talk about financial education. I don't think we're here to educate. I think we're here to build financial product that is just simple and easy to understand, not complicated. And we're also here to advise and guide, not in a very top-down way, but in a way that that a more knowledgeable friend might do.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the things I like about BigPay, that it's exactly simply to use. It's like a friendly face that
Yes,
you can
I
go
think
to.
that's what we need, and that's what we need to be. Yeah. So I think that's really important to be. There's a lot of distance between, I think, traditional financial institution and the everyday man in society. Right? I think, especially out in Southeast Asia, there's a lot of power distance between institutions like banks and a normal everyday person. So I think we need to reduce a lot of that. We need to make it a lot less intimidating. We need to make it a lot simpler for people to get access to financial services.
Definitely. And I want to build on that, not just for BigPay, but like for the world as an ecosystem. If we look at fintech as we know it today, we've been around for roughly 10 years or so. And we have had a ton of impact in customers. The problem statement of financial stress is still there. If anything, it has gotten bigger. So I believe we have had impact, but it's not enough. So what is it that we need to do as an industry to have 10 times the impact in 5 years' time? Not in 20. Now.
Yeah. No, it's a good question. I think we need to continue to better understand our customers and what we can do to make our customers' lives better, right? What are their pain points? What are the choke points that we can unblock with financial services? In what way could we give financial services to help people make their lives happier, more meaningful, right? And I think it's really getting down to those roots, really making sure we understand that. And as society evolves, as countries develop, people's problems change, right? From more basic needs to more advanced needs, lives become more complicated. So how do we keep up with that? How do we keep up with that, our understanding of that? And at the same time, we're going to be creating solutions and features that try to solve these problems, right? But we also have to understand how kind of developments in technology can better resolve pain points, better unblock those choke points, because sometimes it is those advancements in technologies that allow us to make changes, right? So a couple of years ago, it might not have been economically feasible to make sure that absolutely everybody who answers calls a hotline can have instant access to a human being who can spend an hour answering questions, right? But now a Gen AI bot with voice generation capabilities can play that role in a very cost-effective way, right? So I think it's about making sure we keep track of those two streams, right? How problems for customers and customers' lives are changing, and the solutions that we create must change accordingly. And also, how is technology evolving to allow us to make those changes better?
Cool. So it's 5 years' time in the future. And then we've all focused on understanding customers better and using technology better to solve their problems. How do we actually look back and how do we measure that we did have impact?
How do we measure that we've had impact? There's a lot of ways. I think if we can show that people are actively able to manage their money in one place, that if we can reach out to customers and say, hey, look, are you stressed? Are you more or less stressed about your financial state than you were a few years ago before you were using the product that BigPay provides? I think that's a good measure, right? I think the impact on people's being in terms of the kind of emotional state and the amount of stress that managing finances has on their everyday lives, right? If we can reduce that, I think that's a good measure of whether we make impact.
Cool. So going to build a little bit bigger. I'm going to go a little bit deeper. So one of the things when we talk about purpose-driven fintechs, we cannot talk about fintechs and purpose without talking about people as such.
Okay.
So I'll go a little bit now towards you as a leader. You are known as a calm leader, a good leader. How do you balance the side of empowerment thoughts and on the other side being direct?
Yeah. No, it's difficult, right? And I think it's difficult in particular because different people work in different ways. Some people appreciate more autonomy. Some people appreciate a little bit more direction, sometimes instruction more than direction. So you need to balance according to teams and people. But at the end of the day, I think everybody needs some level of autonomy to be happy at work, to be happy with what they do. At the same time, people do need to be aligned behind the clear purpose and direction, right? So I think what's important is that you set out direction and purpose, allow people, give people the autonomy in terms of how they get there, right? What do we build in order to be able to level up people's lives, right? If we want to make sure that we have a feature that allows people to take control of how much they're spending, how would you build it? Maybe I'll leave it more to the team. Right? And I think that's what's important. But it's also important to make sure it's a spectrum. It's important for me to find a balance between giving enough purpose and direction, and leaving enough autonomy. I think so. Sometimes it's easy to overdo that purpose and direction and slip into kind of instruction, right? Where that's going above and beyond. But sometimes you need to do that. And sometimes you need to roll that back. But I think at the end of the day, what we do as leaders is develop people so that they need less and less of that instruction and are more comfortable with having broad direction, broad purpose, and be comfortable with having the autonomy to figure out how best to get to those outcomes. Right?
Yes. And I think you touched in a very specific point that it's people need to be comfortable to take the lead, basically.
Yeah.
One of the things that you've done well is we've focused on building psychological safety.
Yeah.
How do we do that? That's a very broad question.
I think it's difficult because also culturally in this part of the world, people tend to not be as, or maybe they try to avoid confrontation a lot, right? And people tend to perhaps acquiesce a little bit more and say yes a little bit more. So I think it's a few things. One, we have to encourage people to speak out. Two, encourage people to detach the facts and ideas from emotion as well, so that things can be openly debated and even though you disagree at a table, you can come back and still engage with that person, right? You don't take things too emotionally or too personally, right? Which is tough to do because a lot of times people are invested in the ideas that they have come up with. They're invested in the work they have done. So sometimes hard for people to disassociate emotions from that. So I think that's another thing to do. And also make it okay for kind of mistakes to be made or things to be proven wrong, right? And I think it starts with leadership. So I'm more than happy for people to prove me wrong with the right facts, logic. I think I encourage to say, look, also think this is an idea I have, but I always have strong opinions that are weakly held, right? Which means that, I believe in this based on a set of information and facts that I have right now to back it. But if you can give me an alternative set of facts, information that proves that I'm wrong, I'm more than happy to accept. So I think allowing people the space to be wrong and making it okay to be wrong, right? Because we're all wrong at many times, right? That's also very important. That's important for us to give us kind of space we need to iterate on ideas and build better, right?
Yeah, which is key because we won't get it right in the first time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's very rare that we get things right the first time. We always have to iterate and improve. And being able to iterate and improve means being able to leave old ideas behind, right? and has ideas proven wrong, right? Which is fine, right?
Definitely. I like that you touched on the cultural differences based on the region as such. And I want to build on Asia. So there is a report from BCG that says that Asia Pacific will be the largest fintech market by 2030. I've been here 7 years, but of course I am not Asian. And many of the people listening are not from Asia either. So can you tell us a little bit about APAC? Why is this region so ready for growth?
Oh, it's an amazing region. I think it's interesting because there's so much connecting it together, but at the same time, it's quite heterogeneous, right? There's different rates of development, there's different cultures, but at the same time, the whole region is developing uh, at a rapid pace. At the same time, there's strong kind of cultural connections between communities across Southeast Asia. So look, we have almost 700 million people in Southeast Asia. And there's some quite interesting kind of fintech related numbers to this, right? About a quarter are underbanked in some shape or form. And this differs between many markets. In Malaysia, I think something like 98% of people have a bank account, right? But in somewhere like Philippines or Indonesia, that number is a lot lower, right? But again, across the region, there's also a lot of gaps in terms of lending, like 70% don't have access to formal credit. But at the same time, we have a region that has developed very quickly from technology perspective, digital perspective. So 80% or so are internet users. More than 80% feel safe using technology to access financial services. So what's interesting in Southeast Asia, especially from a fintech perspective, is that unlike perhaps other developed markets like Europe or America, where people have been provided more financial services or the financial services they may need through more traditional channels, right? In Southeast Asia, I think a lot of the time, people's first exposure to financial services will be via a mobile phone instead of via a bank branch. I think the way that Southeast Asia is going to become more served from a financial services perspective is entirely digital, right? So that's an interesting part about fintech in this part of the world. I remember going to Myanmar a few years ago now, about maybe 6-7 years ago, and talking to a bank out there, and they were setting up. This was at a time where the economy was really opening up, and a lot of banks were burgeoning, and people were opening their first bank accounts, and they were opening their first internet banking account as well, right? And the interesting thing is there, like, they created a form and they had like advisors from other countries. And of course, the advisors had told them what to include these forms. One of the fields was an email address. And some of these guys didn't have an email address. They had a social media account, Facebook account, right? But they weren't used to using email for communication, right? So that's the nuances. That's the nuance of Southeast Asia. I think it's leapfrogging in terms of financial service in a very digital way.
Yes. So if I build on Southeast Asia is very diverse. And exactly, most of people are technically savvy. They are digital savvy. And they do have some sort of financial services. Then what is the main pain point that BigPay is trying to solve for?
I think what we're trying to solve for is how do we, I think a lot of the time, the emphasis on the kind of product isn't catered to being more sustainable, responsible spending. I think that's the kind of way we want to nudge, the direction we want to nudge people towards. It's easy to provide a loan, but not a lot of people taken out this loan with the understanding of why they need to repay, right? How repaying a loan will improve credit scores, how nudging them to save a little bit from every transaction to repay that loan. I want to move more into that direction. I think that's something that I don't think a lot of financial services providers do, which is guide people and support people into using financial services more productively, more responsibly, and more sustainably, right? Over the long.
Good. I like that. So who are your customers then?
Our customers really are people, and this is a large branch of people in Southeast Asia, right? Our customers are people who want to get from one place in their lives to another. In some ways, we call them transitioners, people who are moving from one social economic strata to the other, right? And sometimes moving very fast. When you move fast, develop fast, sometimes it's hard to get the support you need, money perspective, financial services perspective. So I think that's the real core of the customer set. I think because we're quite close to we're very close to the AirAsia ecosystem, a lot of our customers are actually travelers. And it's quite interesting how I think sometimes people pick up our product and use it for travel purposes because it's a real travel proposition there. And they load it up with money to be spent on a trip. And they can see how much they've been spending on the trip and analyze how much they're spending to the categories and take control of that. I think that's a bit of a microcosm of how they exist on a day-to-day basis and how they should live on a day-to-day basis. Have a budget, put it aside, manage it effectively for the period of time that you use that budget. So I think it's really interesting how we can take that, our proposition, lead it into the travel space and show people how it works there, and then have them bring it back home and use it on a day-to-day basis.
I love that explanation that it's like, hey, we start with travel, and then I'll link that back to we start with travel, we add value in travel, and we're helping people level up their lives in this specific user experience. Then can you give me more examples on how we help people level up their lives outside of travel?
Sure. No, I think that one of the core things that we're really building up, as you know, is our Stash product, which is a little sub account that you can have, that you can create. And I think one of the more important things about that Stash, that sub account, is that you can either set up an automatic monthly deduction to that, or you can round up and top up every transaction you make. You spend 9 ringgit 50 cents in a transaction, round it up to 10 ringgit, the 50 cents goes into its Stash. And there are a plethora of useful things you can do with those stashes that we are building, right? One of these things is a stash that will allow you to save now and spend later, right? For example, you want to go on a holiday using Asia through AirAsia MOVE, right? Or want to go to Bali, for example. You can set up a stash and you can slowly save up for it by making sure that every time you spend, you've put a little bit of money aside to that stash. And so when you ship that, could offer things like extra reward points, maybe a discount on an upgrade to a seat, and other incentives for our customers to save money for that goal. And I'm looking forward to see how we can send that product to a range of other use cases beyond travel. We'll be launching that travel stash very soon. The other way we can use that construct is in helping people to repay their loans, right? We offer a lending product, right? So if somebody might take out a loan when they have a shortfall in their cash, how do we best nudge them into repaying this? Encourage people to round up and top up some of them every time that they transact on the BigPay platform, use the cards, QR, and slowly during the month start building up the kind of repayment amount that you need on a certain calendar date. So that's another way we can use that when we're using the stash mechanism. And that's what we mean by leveling up lives one transaction at a time, right? Because we're there, we can nudge money into the right direction, right? Into a positive direction. So there's lots of stuff we can do around that space. Also going to be exploring ways which we can attach ways to earn money, right? For example, in a stash through a money market account or another investment that's attached to that stash. That's coming in the future, right? So that's really what we mean when we're talking about leveling up customer lives.
Definitely. And there is a lot going on top of stashes. BigPay just went live in Thailand. So there's 2 to 3 pieces of news that have been out there recently. One of them is like BigPay is live in Thailand. That's a big move. That's a huge market as well. How does Thailand differ from Malaysia? Is there another problem that we're solving there, or is it the same one?
I think it's a branch of the same problem. I think we're trying to do very much the same thing, right? But I think in Thailand it's a very interesting as we develop further. I think from our perspective, there's a lot of positive things we can do in terms of savings. So in contrast to the other markets that we're in, Malaysia, there isn't so as much of an emphasis on mandatory provident fund contributions for retirement. So I think there is a lot of responsibility on young people's heads to decide how they're going to save for the future. So very much see an opportunity for us to help people taking that leveling up lives one transaction at a time, help people put some of the money that they're consuming, put some of that spare change away for the future, right? I think that's a really important problem for us to help solve, because you may be new to work and you may be new to the city and you may want to have that lifestyle and live that life with your new salary, but at the same time, it's important for you to build up slowly for the future, right? So that's a space where we're interested in kind of developing over the short and medium term in Thailand.
Yes. And I think that's a very important pain point, because when you are in your mid 20s, early 30s, you don't think much about retirement. You think you have time, and then time passes by. And then once you reach our age, you're like, oh my God, retirement is
Exactly.
just like around the corner. I should have started way much earlier. So I think it's the responsibility for anyone working in fintech to basically nudge customers since a young age and build the right habits. Savings, investing for the short and the long term, but it's very important.
Exactly.
Cool. The other piece of news, you are BigPay. Awesome. We are working in partnership with Move. We have an embedded finance product that is like unique in the market, unique in Malaysia. Can you tell us more about it?
What we've done is we've embedded our BigPay wallet into AirAsia MOVE, which makes it a lot easier for people to pay and buy tickets, right? So there's less friction in the payment journey. And that's what we're there to do, to make things seamless as possible so that people can achieve the ultimate aim that they want, which is get somewhere. So they shouldn't be worrying about entering credit card details, logging into their bank account, transfer the money. We've got an embedded wallet. Make sure the wallet is topped up, and in a few clicks, you can pay for your ticket using your BigPay wallet rather than any other. So that's the first thing that we built. Onto that, soon we're going to be developing things like checkout financing, which is another way of paying for your ticket instead of your wallet, your BigPay wallet, cards. You're able to pay for it with installments over the next year, right? The other thing that we're exploring as well is, I think we're imminently launching, is a lower entry requirement wallet, a light wallet, where you can, with a few more details, a couple more fields of details, you get a light wallet and you can make those seamless payments in the Move.
Yeah, and this wallet is within the Move app. You open the wallet.
Well, if within so you don't have to download within the AirAsia Move app. So you don't have to download a separate app to be able to do that.
And that is cool and unique. It is.
It is. It is.
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
And we're hoping to extend that across Southeast Asia over the next couple of years, right? So that'll be pretty exciting.
Yes, definitely. Because then now, like coming back to financial well-being and helping people, we are going where people are rather than forcing people to come to us. It's hey, we're placing the financial services product in their day-to-day lives. Yeah, I'm buying my tickets, I'm paying for my ride. And that's it. We introduce a low touch financial solution, easy for them
Yeah.
to use, to get
And
in,
that,
and then they can upgrade and then use the full
yeah.
range of
And
products.
that's embedded finance. I think we start with our friend with the AirAsia ecosystem, but very much BigPay is something, trade product is something that we can work with a lot of other ecosystems to embed, right? So we'll be there as a below the surface kind of financial service that the goal is almost to be something that people don't even consider financial services, right? Just get a product. They pay for the product without thinking about it too much.
Yeah. And I think you use a key word that it's like ecosystem and a lot collaboration. It seems the whole fintech ecosystem is moving to a more collaborative environment, partnerships, such that then we can grow the pie and grow together rather than compete a ton. It was on LinkedIn very recently. The management team from BigPay and the ecosystem, they went to China. They met with Ant Financial, and there is a very interesting partnership with Ant. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. A lot of things are still in the gestation process. And so we'll be making that public as they come along. But look, I think there's a lot of things we can learn from Ant Financial. They're very much the OGs in terms of a lot of fintech innovation. But 2014, 2015, 2016, almost 10 years ago now, when they introduced things like NeoBanks and some very interesting things around alternative credit, that alternative credit evaluation, right? Didn't require traditional bureaus or traditional ways of scoring credit. There's a lot of things that they've refined over the last 10 years. And I think a lot of ways that we can benefit from those technologies and capabilities. And there's a lot of ways we can also work with them through the Alipay Plus merchant network, right? Which we will soon be part. Those are the things, there are a lot of things that are emerging, things that we can learn from. But what's interesting for me is how we can take a very sophisticated tool that they may have developed to solve certain problems in a certain way, and we can take it to a different market, maybe solve different problems in a different. So I think that's the power of working with partners from different markets. Sometimes the solution that they've introduced their spaces work in a certain way. It might work in different and better ways when we apply it to a different environment.
Definitely. And then, yeah, because like BigPay is always trying to find innovative, differentiated use cases and ways in which we can add value to customers. So, like you say, it's important to look
Yeah,
at not at others to copy them, but at others to see which capabilities they have, which use cases, which problem statement they have, and then we can localize and apply
yeah,
in our markets, which is
for
great.
sure.
Cool. As we are reaching towards the end of the episode, first of all, BigPay as a brand and as a company has done an amazing job. So, of course, I'm biased. It's like full disclosure. I'm super biased. But yeah, it's like the team has done an amazing job. So, just before we move more into you and the end of the episode, I just wanted to say that as an internal person and as a critical podcaster, both.
Good to hear.
Yeah, the whole team has done an amazing job over the years, and I think
Absolutely.
it's ready to even grow even more, which is amazing.
Absolutely.
So, as we turn gears, coming back to you and leadership, if we want to build differentiated propositions, part of that solution is building great product. So, in your opinion, what is your definition of great product in the context of financial services?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think the answer is it's quite simple, because I think great product's only great if it makes our customers' lives, right? It's only great if a customer finds it great, right? There's no point having something that's super shiny and looks impressive. It can do some impressive, sophisticated things, but doesn't do anything for the customer, it's useless. So I think to have a great product, to build great product, we have to have a lot of empathy, right? So I think that's important. That's a secret in building great product, right? Because we need to have the empathy that allows us to put ourselves in the shoes of our customers, to feel that frustration they feel when they use maybe more traditional banking products and fix that frustration, or to feel that embarrassment they have when they're berated or looked down upon in a bank branch, and make sure that doesn't happen. Make sure we don't do it in the same way, right? So I think that's the, if you will, the secret sauce thing. So I think empathy is key. And with that empathy, understanding what we need to build for our customers. If we start from that position, I think that's the only way for us to get to great product.
Yeah. Many product teams across the world in fintech, they are stressed. They have a ton in their plates and they are very focused on delivering and hitting the commitments and the numbers, the results, the outcomes that they said they could. How could you help them become more empathetic, reconnect to empathy when sometimes it may not be the natural state when they are at delivery working mode?
Yeah, no, I think you have to be able to draw the map or the connectivity between a customer feelings and emotions and pain points and those numbers. Because at the end of the day, I think that we're all businesses. So we need to build something that a customer finds value in or paid for. I think people need to understand and take a few steps and see how backwards and see why they need to build product features that actually solve problems or bring value or bring more happiness to a customer's lives. Because it's only then that people will pay money for it. So we can make a profit margin for it in our numbers. And I think that's all logical, all sits together. But I think what's important for practitioners, people in product or building, is to, make sure they understand where those numbers are coming from. At the end of the day, the numbers are coming from people. Hit your numbers if people buy your product, if it's meaningful for them. So the first thing we do is make sure that we understand what is meaningful for the customer. So I think that understanding that map of how we get from customers' feelings to the bottom line is important. And I don't think it's complicated. I don't think that people don't understand it, but sometimes it's very easy to get lost in trying to hit numbers and targets. But I think you need to start from where those numbers will be derived from and why we have to hit them only if we give people the kind of products that they want to use and pay for every day.
Definitely. I totally love this part of the conversation. And then talking about feelings and emotions, empathy, totally not related to fintech customers as such. But some of the listeners of the podcast, they want to get more engaged with the podcast. And they've asked me, hey, can I ask questions to the people that you interview? Today, we have a question from the community. In this case, it's our very own Pab from BigPay who's asking the question. And he is saying, Zubin, what is your thought process to set company strategy and company objectives? How much of it is logical versus intuitive?
Yeah. No, I think that's a great question. I think for me, it's important to basically figuring out where we want to be and then work backwards to figure out what we need to do to get where we need to be. For me, means how do we want to really be impacting the lives of our customers? I think we've laid that out. And also importantly, how do we do this differently from the competition of today? And maybe what the competition will do in the future. So I think setting that out, saying, look, this is where we want to be, this is how we want to compete, this kind of things we want to provide our customers, and working backwards to say, okay, from here, then what does that mean we have to build, right? How do we need to construct a platform for our customers. So that's how I think about strategy. And how much of it is logical versus intuition and being intuitive? I think honestly, intuition is just logic we don't understand fully. So I think an intuitive outcome is basically that arises from a really complicated algorithm in our heads that draws from all of our past experiences, our past memories, things that we've done. We don't always understand the algorithm, but we have to trust that it's working. Like nowadays we trust like this large language model that we can't see. It's a black box, but we are very sometimes reluctant to trust our own minds, which we're usually in control of. I think sometimes we don't understand this complicated algorithm that brings us to an intuitive outcome, but we should learn to trust it.
I love that because like many times people talk about intuition and then they see the value, but somehow they disregard the value at the same time. But now we're saying, hey, there's a lot of, it's an algorithm. We just don't understand.
It's just very complicated, right?
It's
And
very
people are trying to
complex
rebuild
algorithm.
these types of algorithms and large language models and the like in AI, but we have it right in our head, right? So use it.
Yeah, so that will be another Subism. So for anyone listening, when I'm in meetings with Subin, sometimes I write quotes and I call them Subisms. I just send them to him. So this is another Subism.
Yes.
I love it. Okay, cool. So this is our very last question that I love asking everyone in the show. So if you were to change one thing in fintech that would make the lives of customers, colleagues, and shareholders better, what could that be?
Just to echo the thought that's been going on throughout this conversation, I think it would be more empathetic. In all circumstances, let's put ourselves into other people's shoes, right? Our customers' shoes, the shoes of our colleagues, our investors. Everybody has their own objectives, their own targets, their own the things that they want to achieve. Everybody has their own stresses, constraints on themselves. And if we don't really understand these things, we don't really understand why people react in the way that they do, be it a team member, be it an investor. You may think, oh, investors coming down hard on, one of our investors coming down hard on our margins and wants us to increase margins. We may need to make some tough decisions to do that. Or we may think that investor is being unreasonable, but there are reasons behind it. Perhaps that investor, their own shareholders are putting pressure on them to increase margins. They may similarly for team members who might not be turning things around fast enough. What else is going on in their lives? We need to understand, and we need to be able to pretend we are other people, really, to better navigate our business and how we do things.
I love that. That's a beautiful way to finish the episode. It's empathy and pretend to be other people so that we can really understand. Awesome. Zubin, it's been an absolute pleasure having you in the show. Everyone, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me, Zubin, like we're in the same place. And see you next week, everyone. Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.